lunch, I'm okay. I sleep all night and I work all day. I cut down trees, I eat my lunch, I go to the laboratory. And on Wednesdays I go shopping and have butter scones for tea. Take it away, Stan.
Good morning. By cracky, we're going to show you how to build a log cabin for the warm winter in this here Revit stuff today. Brian and Mr. Juji here is going to just dazzle you with his brilliance in log and mountain construction. So, happy Halloween, everybody. That's enough of that nonsense, probably. My name's Stan Henney. I'm the Business Development Manager here at, and the whistle punk, I see. And we have Brian Juji, one of our certified instructors, lumberjacks, and technical specialists here to talk to you today about how to use some of the Autodesk tools, not just Revit architecture, but some of the site selection tools and so forth for log construction and mountain construction in general. So hopefully you'll get some good information out of this today and have a little fun too.
Yep. Here we're just going to go through the similar routine with our webinars here. You can see that you can listen in if you tune into your speakers, unless you want to go in and use the telephone. We will not be taking live calls, however. If you want to have us draw attention to you, you could put in yourself the raising your hands. And one thing we always like to do is to see if the audience is listening. It always makes
or
hearing us, or is alive or has a pulse. Those are all good things to have. So if you wouldn't mind just raising your hands, hitting the raise your hand marks, just to see if we've got any live audience out there. And there we go. We've got some of you tuning in. Awesome.
Okay, we know some of you are hearing us anyway.
Everybody's wearing their plaid today, I hope.
And yes. And last but most importantly, if you do want to ask a question, please type it into the question box, and we will try to answer it as close to in context as possible, and certainly try and get to it before the end of the session today. So, Brian?
Well, I'm actually going to be talking a little bit on AutoCAD and something raster design. Raster design for, well, for all kinds of things.
Not disaster design, raster design.
Exactly. Not disaster. Did I put disaster design?
You said disaster design.
Well, with raster design, you avoid disaster design. Let's just put it that way. I know some of us out there, when we're putting together homes in the mountains and those types of things, some of the things that can happen with that is that you need to design on that site, and you might not have that survey put together, or you might not have all the context that you need to put that information out there. Maybe you're given some very limited information. So we're going to just jump in for a little bit and talk about one that I've been using for my homes and stuff that I've been designing for, and that's going to be raster design. And what it does is it takes raster images. What are raster images, you may ask? Well, that would be any kind of scanned images you have, a JPEG, PDFs, things like that out there. We all know that Revit can't read PDFs, and we all know that programs out there, they don't understand topography, so we have to go in and redraw those lines, and that can be kind of tedious sometimes, making those kinds of things up. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then one of the other things we're going to get into is actually getting into Revit and talk about log, how to build a log wall. We're going to walk through doing some stuff on that. We're going to do some things on some framing, how we might best go about putting in some framing, some details with the log design, how I trick out the trusses for putting those things together, and then some other tools and ticks, because they're in the mountains. Ticks and trips, things that happen when you're walking around the mountains, or tips and tricks
when you're walking around your virtual log cabin.
Exactly. So
now,
we're going to
Brian, let me do a quick impromptu poll here. For everyone that's listening here, could you raise your hand if you have Building Design Suite Premium or Ultimate, or I guess even Standard, although Standard won't have Revit in it. What I want to find out is if you have the Building Design Suite, so that we can tell if you already have the raster design tool. And
wow, okay, good. Quite a few of you out there.
So quite a few of you have it, and some of you probably just aren't paying any darn attention to it.
Well, and that's great because that's one of the things I wanted to, and some say don't know. Well, we'll find out if we do know. You can actually look at that product list. But I'm excited about this because it makes my job easier. It makes my life easier when I'm going to build these homes that I can get out there and get in a raster design.
Now, I do want to qualify this and just say that while Brian here teaches with us and does a lot of consulting for our clients and so forth on how to do everything from set up templates and implement Revit projects the right way and so forth. But he also is a practicing architect who does a lot of log construction, so he's become fairly familiar with it over the past few years here. He used to live in California and did ultra-modern homes.
Yeah, very contemporary stuff.
And now he's doing logs.
So it's been a roller coaster ride of experiences.
Yep.
All right, so the first thing we're looking at over here is this is AutoCAD. You know, this is kind of foreign to have me pull up on here, but inside AutoCAD, we have one of these things up here called raster design, the raster tools, and actually I'm going to come in and I'm going to minimize this for a second and grab one of my other toolbars that I use all the time that I don't know why I have not launched yet. This could be my little e-pointer tool, and you guys are all used to looking at this, so I'm going to throw that back up there. So inside AutoCAD, you can get this one called raster design, and what it allows us to do is bring in those scanned images. You can see here's a scan on the side that I got from one of my clients, and I'm going to go in and trace over this. That can be quite tedious at times, or maybe you're going to go online and grab the only thing you can grab, Google Earth or something like that. A lot of times, at least in my experience with smaller projects, you cannot get the information right away. You're waiting for the client to give you a survey or something like that, and you pretty much always get it 2 days before you're putting in the permit. So you're left with trying to make some assumptions on how the site's laid out. And on this particular site, it was clearly that same type of thing. We weren't going to get any new surveys. You know, we usually try to request that as part of our documents, but it wasn't going to come. Nothing was going to come out from that. So I was able to get a scanned site plan here and bring that in. And here you can see what it is. And this is kind of the resolution I've got up here. And it's a pretty steep site out here. You can see it's in the Arapahoe National Forest that we're having in here. And apparently every time I move around, it decides to blink on us. So that's what we're getting. But we had a client who wanted to put a new house on this particular site. And they're saying, well, it's really steep, but they couldn't describe how steep it was. And I said, well, pictures are not going to do it for me right now. So I need something else that I can work with. So I was able to procure this site here that was done, I think, in the 70s. And then I said, well, I need want to refine it. Well, the trick is you go and you scale that up to the scale you need. And then with some of the tools, we can come in here and select that particular thing and kind of, you know, change the brightness, change the intensity and stuff like that on there. But in the raster tools, I'm going to go in and do the processing. So I can come inside and do some different processing with that tool in here and select that tool and look at the brightness and contrast. And basically what I'm trying to do is just take it out so I just get the lines that I need in there. So the first thing I might convert it to grayscale or play with the threshold equalizer, play with the brightness in here until I get that down. And then after I've got that down, and that's what we'll see on this image over here, is I washed it down and all I wanted from this one was the major contours. So I was able to go in and get the major contours out of that. Inside, I've already started working on this particular one, but I had a couple contours left, and I'm just going to show you how this process works. So I have these two contours here, this real funky one that's probably the hardest one for to do in the project, and this one over here. So I'm going to erase this line in here and kind of redo it. Inside here, I'll just go to my followers, and I've got contour followers inside. And what simply we start out doing is by selecting the line work that you want inside there. I'm going to hit add and keep going and see if I can get it to keep working on there. It's not going to roll up this direction. And basically work my way up on the line, and it kind of auto-detects stuff as we're going in. And for continue, select that again, and it goes out and kind of directs lines. Now, you can see here where it's kind of did a different direction on me. And I did this one on purpose. This is one of my harder ones I had to do. So instead, I'm going to come back here to R for rollback, roll that back and say I'm going to roll back to that position. I'm going to hit O for continue. I'm going to select over here, and it's going to start and hit enter because this isn't Revit. Oh, come on. Undo. Roll back to there. Put a couple manual ones in there.
That dang AutoCAD's hard, isn't it?
Oh, I know. And after a while, you start forgetting what you were doing. Inside there, you have to hit enter all these times. And when you're done, it just makes that topo actually at the level that you want it at. So you can go in there and set the elevation. You can see the ones I've already done. I don't think I put that one in the correct elevation in there, but I automatically put those inside at the elevation I want, and then I could go in and push this now into Revit and get my topo plan. And that's really why I like using this out there. It's pretty simple and quick to do. I could hit there and keep clicking every single line around, but this one traces them throughout the process, relatively easy with this follower tool. Granted, in doing something that might be a little bit more complex, it takes more time. So you can see here the lines are really staggered, but it's easy for me to get this done in a short amount of time rather than trying to click. Now, if I had lines that went all the way around it, basically prick each topo out every 10 feet or 5 feet or whatever I wanted to select and be easier. So the cleaner the raster image is, the better the results are going to be out there. This was just one. I said, well, let's take the worst one and see what happens. And it actually goes really fast. And the whole process took me about 10, 15 minutes to get it done once I figured out what the elevations were going to be out there on this particular project. So just wanted to take it, get you guys used to seeing something like this. It's another product that a lot of you probably already have.
But don't know it.
But yeah, exactly. Don't know it. You've had it for years, and you didn't know you had it for years. So I just wanted to make sure you guys are aware of that. It's something I like using out there, and I hope you guys will like using it too. Maybe a quick show of hands. Anybody who's ever seen this product before or has used it before? It's been out there for, I think, 15 years. So we've had raster design. Oh,
Looks like we haven't got any.
not a soul on the list.
Oh,
Okay.
There's
a couple, all right. I'm just curious if you guys have used it or not, for those two or three that raised their hands out there, and if they found it useful at all. I know for me, a lot of people demo this to do as-built drawings, and I just find it easier to draw square buildings right over the scanned images. But the topo tools, this is a lot faster, I think, than trying to do it in Revit and get it done, just because it will follow the contours. It will put that in there. Well, easy. I don't know another way of putting it other than it's easy to do.
It's a great tool, actually.
Yeah, inside. Just put that in there. R for, was that reverse roll? D for direction. Got that back going the other direction. Specify direction. Specify going that way. Now I've got it rolled out. You can see it's going around. Manually, I might get some of that in. R for roll back a little bit. Roll back to there. Put a couple manuals. There. You can see it just kind of rolling along as I'm putting along there. And then when I'm done, hit enter. Specify my contour height. Hit enter again. Contour falls, and I've got it. I've got that layer inside, and then it removes the last bit of line work. I know I'm done with that particular line. It's removed it from the process.
And I will tell you that while this is a quick overview, this session will be recorded today. If the creek don't rise and so forth and so on, and the recording works. But it will be recorded. And then we also recently did, Warren Geisler, our GIS and one of our civil and GIS technical specialists, recently did another presentation on raster design. It's in our archives and on our YouTube page. So if you want more information on this, you can certainly go watch that.
All right. Well, here we are. Another familiar thing you guys are probably used to is Revit, right? So we'll get into Revit land, and you guys can always ask questions about the raster design. But now we'll jump into Revit, something hopefully we're all a little bit more familiar with. I know I'm more familiar with the commands in here. Remembering to hit that enter key and typing things in is a little foreign to me now. It's kind of scary to say that in here. But here's a particular project that I've put together inside of here. It's just a small little cabin, but just showing you the ways we can look at cabins and some things to do We can see with the log purlins and stuff on the roof, you know, just adding some transparency in there, being able to show a couple of quick shots. This is something that for the mountain community is quite new. I've had a lot of success in being able to show different things like this for people and just get their dream home, their little dream home put together. We can see that this cabin, all in all, is only 1,300 square feet. The main level is only 600 square feet for this little cabin out here, a little cabin in the woods.
Or maybe it's their dream second, third, fourth, or fifth home.
Yeah, hopefully that's the case. Hopefully we get those kinds of things out there, but that's not always what's going on. It would be nice, but it's not always the case. Right. So in here we can see just a small little thing. I've got other things like different options, so we can see what it looks like with shed roofs. And let's see if I got the arch beam, west dormer. Yeah, I think I maybe took some of these out on the earlier scheme here. But we can put the different themes inside. But one of the ones I really want to focus in right now is how do we go out? How do you build a log wall? Well, it's actually really simple, and we're going to look at that right now. So here's a typical log wall that we'll have for the project. And some interesting things that I have in my walls that others may or may not have in there. And I'm going to turn on some shading so we can see down here that my walls have chinking inside out here, but not on the outside after you do the saddles. So we've got some chinking inside as part of the log itself. And for those of you that know what that is, it's, you know, kind of interesting to be able to show that with clients and stuff, and then getting in the copes and the saddles to work out. So we're going to look at how this is all done. I'm going to select the wall in here, come over to my edit types, and inside here just look at the structure of the wall. And we'll find that this wall is very basic. I get a lot of people asking me, hey, can I steal your walls or take your walls? And you know what? It's longer for me to email this to you than it is for you to build your own. I'm going to be quite honest with that. I think it's a pretty quick thing to do inside here. So here we can see the profile of the log wall itself. This one happens to be quite tall, and I'll explain why I made this one so darn tall when the sample file is only 20 feet high. So inside here, again, I went over, I hit my edit type, I went into edit type, and then I went into the properties. And the next thing I'm going to do is if I'm going to make a new one, I would hit duplicate. But I'm just going to look at the structure at the moment and come inside. And here we have what the wall is made of. Total thickness, 6 inches. That's all it is inside here. And this is just to represent the chinking inside of the wall, so I can show it on both sides for the clients. Makes it really easy to show those kinds of things in here. Just to add that structural layer, I just pulling this out as thermal insulation. This was prior to some other work I was working on with it. We're trying to do some thermal massing in there, and then I just made that the proper thickness. But where the magic happens is this button right down here under sweeps. Okay, so in the sweep command, if we look inside, what we'll find out is that there are a bunch of these 12-inch log profiles. So as I'm going in, you can see here it is, this blue one over here, there's another one over here throughout this wall, and they're all the same except maybe the one at the bottom. That one, let me see if I can, is a half log. Because on some of your courses, you have to start out with a half log and then go to the full log, and that's how you get that design. You can see down here in the background we have a half log where this log wall is starting with a full log. So you got to make 2 types of walls for each one of those.
Kevin, I see that you've got a couple really good questions here, and I'm going to kind of let them ride for just a little bit while Brian goes through, because I think some of this will get answered as we go along, and if it doesn't, we'll get back to your questions real quick here. So. Yeah, I'm looking at it. We are going to get into some of those in here, and some of those answers aren't going to be the best. I don't have a great solution. Some of them are going to be quite, I think, brilliant and simple. We'll find out how that goes. Because I'm a lumberjack. We're building these with chainsaws, you know, cutting these out with chainsaws. All right, so we have sweeps in here, and we can see we have. All they are is a 12-inch profile. We'll take a look at that in a second, and it will actually do a Swedish cope. I'll do a Swedish cope inside because I don't really build those, but I'll build one in here. We have the material inside. I just assigned it as wood, but the biggest one in here is the distance, and we can see basically for this 12-inch log, I have to put one up and make a sweep for every single foot. Great for 12-inch logs. Once you get into 14 or 16 or 18.
you've got to do your math and make sure you're writing in the right numbers. There's no easy answer to just say array this up, although I've seen people make walls with arrays, and that's great to do it with an array command or to copy those logs up. But what I find with it is it makes it really hard to design quickly with this. For this wall, I just draw lines and that makes the wall itself in here. And we're all doing this from the bottom, the exterior side. And you'll also see that as this is being done, the profile is set up so this is the center. Whoops, that's not a straight line. Let's make a line command in here. So I've got my center of this is where the log is, so it's equal distant on either side of that wall is where that profile is going to be. And that's why we're going to get some of this 3-inch offset. That's to offset it to make sure it's in the center because I can only pick exterior, interior sides. I cannot pick the middle of the wall to base this from. Unfortunately, you only have the choice of exterior, interior when you're putting that together. Okay. Flipping isn't going to do anything. Cut setbacks, cuts with walls. These are ones you're going to have to play with, so you make sure you're cutting out your doors, or your doors and your windows are cut out when you put them in there. Okay. All right. Ooh, we got, yeah, hopefully we have examples of inserting doors and windows in the wall. Yes, we will. One of the things you are going to find, though, is that, let me point this out. As I'm closing out of this, I'm going to could not create integral wall sweep positions. Certain errors are happening, and that's because of the length of the walls I have. I have more logs, more sweeps than, I'm trying to draw this. I have more sweeps than what the wall allows. My walls right now are up here, and I have extra long walls. And the reason I have these extra long walls is because if I do a taller building, I want to have logs on it. So I just said, forget it. I'm going to make sure that I can at least get 32 feet out of all of my log walls. So I made them all to be 32 feet high or something like that, or 40 feet high in there. So this stopped at 20 feet up here, but I added extra logs in, so I'd have to go back in and make more sweeps as we're putting this together. But because of that, I'm going to start getting warnings and stuff with these sweeps. It's a real fun mess we gotta deal with for it. Okay. So what's the end result? So as I'm drawing these walls in here, I'll start off with my wall command, and then inside I'll go into the log wall. And as I draw it, it looks like a regular wall in here. But when I hit enter, now I'm talking AutoCAD all of a sudden. Now, when I finish the command and finish clicking, you can see now I've got my log wall put together with my chinking in it. Okay, and I've got that all built up inside. Okay. All right, so question comes in that we might get is, okay, how do we get the saddling to work? I've got one wall going one way, and I'm actually going to spin this around. I'm just going to kind of replicate this. So I'm going to start a new project real quick out here, using my architectural template. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to import my walls over and make sure I've got those inside. Yes, I know I should probably have my templates all worked out, but I don't yet, not in here, not for examples. So check none, do my wall sweeps, wall types, and I think I got everything. Yeah. Should be everything I need out of there. Get my new only. 3, 2, 1. Come on, Revit, hurry up for us. But we'll start off with a really simple, I'm just going to do a square log cabin in here. So I'll go into architectural, I'll go to wall, come up, grab my 12-inch log wall, do a rectangle, put that inside, and I've got my basis for my cabin. Maybe, someday. Come on, Revit. Warnings. Warnings are never good. And we can see that we've got our log in there, and it looks kind of funky. It looks really square. It's joining at the ends. And that's because we've got the same profile. So now I have to come in. I'm going to take these two log walls, and instead of doing the full log, I'm going to do the half log. And then that will change the bottom log to a half log and kind of separate those so that we're going to be able to get the saddles and everything else cut inside. So now that I've got that in there, we can now see that we've got intersecting logs. We've got our chink lines in here. But it still doesn't look quite right, okay? We want to start doing the saddling. So I'm going to come over here to the south view, and I've got my my log walls inside. And next thing I'm going to go in and use is I'm going to use the reference planes. Okay, reference planes, if you're not familiar with them, they are the datum elements, very similar to levels and grids, but they don't print. They are planes, so you'll see them in different views, which is going to be really nice to have for the other side of this project. So in this south view, I'm going to go in and I'm going to start doing the saddling over, and I'm going to use the reference planes to get this done. Okay, so inside here, and I might do grids later on. I usually have them, but I'm going to use an offset, and I'm going to come in here. I'm just going to use like a 2'6" offset inside. Oops, that's not going to work. It's going to yell at me. Not 26, 2'6". There we go. And then put it inside here, and I've got that reference plane going on one side, and I'm going to come into the other side and do the same thing. Space it over. I've got that over on both sides. Okay. Then I'm going to come inside. I'm going to select that wall. We're going to see we have all these little grips. See all these little blue bubbles at the very left and right side. Well, those are the sweeps. Okay. So if you're looking to do a blind saddle, you might have to bury this inside the wall and put that sweep inside, and it'll bury it halfway in. Okay. But if we're going to do a saddle and bring that out all the way, we'll come in and I'll just drag all these over. Yes, it's kind of a manual process. That's the part I've got it to right now. I could do it another way where I just draw these walls the full length, but I like to take advantage of having the chinking lines in there, have that insulation being shown from that. You can see over here on the left, I've got it without the chinks, and over here on the right, I do have the chink lines inside. Okay, and if we go do some kind of shaded view, we can see the same thing. I've got the logs here, and I can see the different chinking inside here. So that makes it really easy to do. So I've started this particular side. Let's come back in here and do this one, and drag those out. So I'll be able to get all that to work. And then I can go in and do the other side. So that's going to be the west side. I'll go to the west side. Yeah, there it is, the west side. See it over here? I'll do the same thing. I've got my reference planes. Make sure I'm doing my 2'6" again. So I've got that inside. Space that over. Now I put that line out here, and then I'll come in, I'll select that wall, and I'll start dragging all these grips over. Okay? And as a result, that's going to be how we're going to get the wall done to have the proper saddling that we want for this.
And just as a note, Brian, Kyle makes the comment that he's also used the align tool and aligned to the faces, so that's another method of potentially
go in
doing
there
this.
and do that. What I guess some of the times I like doing the log wall this way, because what I'll go and do, I actually come in and do this, and I'll vary it a little bit from side to side. So I guess that's why I'm more used to doing it this way, because then I'll get it, well, that log's a little bit out, that log's a little bit shy, and then it looks more authentic, kind of, so I get this little stagger look in here. But if you want it really clean, then yeah, you definitely have the alignment line in there to put in there. So thanks for bringing that up, Kyle. It's a great tool out there too. One that we should be using a lot more of out there. So it just depends on what type of look you might be looking for. That's probably the only reason why I have this in here and run the guideline to it. But yeah, to save time, the alignment tool is going to push this out a bit more. And as you can see, when we're done, there we are. We get our logs to pass in. Now, one thing that isn't going to happen, and this happens to do with wall sweeps, is I'm not going to get any visual coping in here at all. Okay, that's not going to happen in here. So I'll make a little substitution with this in a different way. I'll still use a hidden line view, but instead I'll come down to my hidden line view. I'll go to my graphic display options, and in certain views, I will go into shadowing, and I will show ambient shadows. Now, by selecting this one, this is kind of a newer feature, hitting apply, it's going to put some shadowing in here, and I'm going to start to get some implication of what's going on. I mean, that might not be the best view for that. We can start to see that as we're getting in there, we're starting to see shadowing, and sometimes that'll help show that in different ways. And here you can see on the screen that it's starting to imply where those line work's being done. For the most part, I haven't had too many people complain or rub it the wrong way. The other thing you can do is start looking in the realistic view. I don't know if I have this one all set up that way yet, but in the realistic view, you start to get the patterns of the wood and all that to show up. And here my wood patterns are going the opposite direction. But you can see that's going to enhance it a little bit more too for your different views or for clients. But a lot of times I don't like showing color. I'd rather show black and white for that. But here you can see clearly I have chinking on the left and the right, no chinking in here. I'm able to do the saddle conditions to get a lot of my stuff done. All right. One great advantage by having the walls built this way is now I can come in and I can just simply put in a door and a window. So I just put a door inside and it'll crop to it. There is a little bit of funkiness that we have to contend with that we can by building other custom doors and stuff to get around that.
So this is a standard out of the box.
This is a standard out of the box door. This is a standard out of the box window. The other thing I'm looking for is the chinking line. I got to be able to touch the wall, and the wall is actually the chinking. It's another good reason to have that in there because it won't detect the sweeps automatically. But you can see it's cutting that right out. I've got the frames in there and everything else. Now, as far as the bucking goes, as far as trying to get that beveled edge in there, you're going to have to do some work to get that one done. One of the weird things that we have with windows is you cannot do any negative space from that. You can create solids but no void forms with a window that plays some nasty tricks with it. So if you really wanted to get something that's going to be beveled at the sides, at the top, at the bottoms, and things like that with the door, with the window, you're going to have to make a separate void form. I just kind of said, forget it. I'm not in the business. Maybe on a more a bigger log home where I'm doing something in the neighborhood of 7,000-8,000 square feet, small cabin. Yeah, I might take the time to go and do that. But on these little ones that we're just putting out pretty quickly, there's no need for me to go in and get that extra work, especially if they're going to move the window in the next 10 minutes to somewhere other place for it. So I just kind of stick with the standard windows, move those things around. I don't have a big desire to go in and play those games with all the windows and everything else.
Now you mentioned custom windows, so you could probably use a custom window. I mean, a family. You could create a family for your windows and doors that would maybe adapt a little better to the logs.
Yeah, you definitely could. Just know that the void forms, because you're using an opening, don't exactly work. But maybe building that up in a different way. I can always swap this window out for a custom window. So at any point, if just by using the generics, I have the freedom to go in there and pick something else that the client might request or do. I've had clients that build their own windows with stained glass. You get flavors in life. So it's really easy. This is a placeholder. I'll go swap it for something else later on. And I got a comment here. I made someone out there made an opening big enough to accommodate a buck, which is nice to have in there too. When we can do that out there, I just at this point I think the way I'm working, I'd love to see it. That's actually be fun to have out there to do.
Now we've got quite a few questions stacking up here, Brian. So if you got just a minute to break, let's get some of them out of the way so that we don't get too far off the track. Kevin had several good questions. Actually, it sounds like he's really working with the log construction quite a bit. I think your first question, Kevin, might have been fairly closely answered. He says, how do you get the connection lines at the corners where the walls meet? I run into this problem, and then down a ways, he says, this is where I struggle. And that's where you had the chinking lines on the inside and the clean connection lines or joint lines on the outside. So
yeah, hopefully we've answered that up. Answered that for you, Kevin.
I think we've come as far as we can with that anyway. Next question, how would you handle a condition where the roundness of the logs are cut flat on the inside to accept a 2x6 stud, say for a plumbing wall or something?
It's a great question, and I might have an example already loaded in here. Let me see if I do. Let's see if this log wall has it inside. Can't remember. Okay. So this particular one, it's not flat against the side. But what you can see in here is that I made it flat at the top. This was like an earlier design I was working on. It's still around. And you're basically going to go in and you're going to change that profile. So the profile of this particular log is flat, round again, whereas the other one is just a completely round circle. Okay? And so when you're building the profiles, what we'll have to do is we're going to have to go in and build the roundness. That's pretty round. Okay. Try that again. Build the roundness and then build it flat on one side for the actual profile, putting that in there. And that might take us to the next step. So let's get through a couple more of these questions.
Right.
But I'll handle that next too. We'll actually go in. I'll do a Swedish coat, but I can show you how you can do it where it's flat on one side, or if you're just doing another wall, which is just log siding in here. And on this one, I don't have any log siding, which is just a thin veneer, pretty much.
And then Kevin also asks about or says that the windows and door insertion is a bit of an adventure, and I think you've already addressed that with the void forms and some of those things. Let's see, I was not able to figure out how to run that type of wall into a gabled roof. So again, running a log wall into a gabled roof, he says in-place model was my solution. With angles in the logs where the gables meet. And then we have a couple questions about creating that scalloped look at the log ends there and so forth, which I know you're going to get to in a bit here.
The scallop. Okay, I think I know
Kind
what we're talking about.
What is it, the Swiss coping or whatever?
Okay, yeah. So I'm going to come inside. I'm going to lower this log wall. Again, I'm going to get the airs because of the sweeps. That's just pretty standard for this. So you'll see air on these walls inside. So we're going to put the roof on this in here. Actually, another thing I'll do is I'll move this in a little bit just to show you what you have to contend with this. You can see my sweeps are still being maintained at the distance they were at, so that makes it nice to be able to drag that in to make that wall a little bit smaller so that we can accommodate this. Now I'm going to come up to a top view, and beautiful as it is, it's a long cabin that we have in here. And I'm going to do a roof command inside. So roof by footprint, level 2, hit yes. Now I'm going to come in here and do walls, and I'm going to put just a 3-foot overhang inside here. We'll do a shallow pitch. We'll do 9 and 12 for log. That's pretty shallow. And undefine the slope, so that when I hit OK, I get my log cabin. Now, the next part we get into, okay, that's great, but I actually want to attach to the wall, so I'm going to come in here and select all my walls. So I'll hover over one, hit tab, select all those walls, and I go attach top base, and I do, come on, Brian, let's do this again, attach top base, make sure we're doing the top, pick my roof, and then I'll have these slide on up. And then what we can see and do is that now I've got it coming up to the roof plan, okay, inside here. Now, this looks good, pretty good right now. It's actually doing a pretty good job. But if you'll notice, if we come inside, it's actually not going all the way. And what it's happening is this sweep is stopping right here, but the rest of this log doesn't come into the building, okay? So what I need to do is, this is more of a manual process. I might have to come in and push these in a little bit more, okay, to get that done. Now that's going to come in there a lot cleaner than it was before. Usually the case, though, is that I'm not taking it and pushing it into the wall. I usually need to remove it, and that's because our steepness changes. So I'm going to come in and select this roof real quick, and I'm going to come in and I'm just going to change this to a 12 and 12. You can see underneath how those logs are being done inside. And I got the generic roof. Let me see if I grab this roof and make it a little bit thinner. 9-inch, and maybe even this one, the roof rafters inside, and see if I can get that to poke out a little bit. No, my bigger logs will. So I'm actually going to switch this out to a bigger log because I really want to show you what's going on when we have this and it's kind of poking out. So some of the things I have to deal with in doing this, but it's kind of a compromise that I have in here, and it's still not pushing that out. So I'm going to go back and make that 9. See if I can Make those come out a little bit. Nope. All right. Well, I'm just going to show you what it'll do to me. So a lot of times what will happen is this will actually do the opposite and not go into the wall, but extend out of the wall. So I get all these little funky peaks that sit out beyond my wall type in here. So as I'm designing it, I might have a couple of these peaks in here, and I have to go in and hide those. So there's a couple ways I can do it. I can select these walls again and push that inside. One of the tricks I used to do early on was that I would build the roof a lot thicker than I needed it. Now, once we started going to SIPS roofs and doing things like that, it made it a lot easier. I just buried it inside. It was a lot more to do, a lot more interesting and fun to do. The other thing to do is by breaking up the roof into separate roofs, meaning that I might have my metal roof on top with the sheathing so I can pull the metal roofing over and get in a different effect. But then for my framing, that'll be a separate roof underneath so that my sheathing can go out over. I can do rafter tails with logs or something like that, as opposed to trying to do it with the insulation that's inside the house or something like, along those natures. So the roof becomes two parts in a sense. And then I just attach my log wall to one of those two roofs to give me the effect. If I'm poking out of the roof, I attach it to the one on the inside. If I'm not poking into the roof enough, I attach it to the one on the top. And it just kind of play it back and forth depending on the condition we need to meet out there. So hopefully that explains a little bit on how to get that done. I'm hoping, Kevin, that you're getting a little bit more out of this for those types of conditions.
Well, he gave you an emphatic yes.
All right.
There, so that means good things.
So we've got those things inside, kind of those conditions in here. I'm going to actually switch it back to my other model real quick and explain a couple things that are going on in here. Because one of the things that's pretty typical is you've got to go in and you've got to build these types of things. You know, we've got to put something on there. Actually, I'm going to stop myself. I'm getting ahead of myself. We want to go in and build a log wall, right? That's what we want to go and do.
That's what we want to do. That's what we're here for.
That's what we're here for, Brian. Okay, so we're going to go in and we're going to start with making our log profile. Again, I said I do a Swedish coat, but maybe if you guys will let me, maybe I'll do the one Kevin wants. So we'll do them both. They're pretty easy to do. So we have to start off with using a profile in here. So I'm going to go to my application menu, come on down and go to new. I'm going to start a new family. Okay. Inside this new family, I'm going to sweep down and go to profiles. So we've got all these different profiles in here that we could start off with. We've got hosted and reveal and stair nosing and stuff, and we'll talk a little bit about stair nosing, but I'm going to start off with the generic profile and hit open. Okay. Now, if I wanted to build a log, just a round log sweep, I'm going to come inside, I'm going to go to create, I'm going to go to line work, and inside here I'm going to go to round, start in my center, and I'm just going to draw that radius I need. You know, so if I want a 10-inch log, it's going to be 5 inches. And let's say I want a 6-inch Swedish log, so I'll go in and do 6 inches. So I've got the first part of the thing in here. Now the next part I'll get inside is I'm going to go in here and copy this down so I can get the coat to work out. And I might adjust this a little bit so I get it to place correctly. So I'm going to go inside and do copy, and I'm going to copy that down, and I'm going to put it in here just like that. Okay. I want the log to be the same, so I might actually move this up another 2 inches just to. And I'm no expert on this, so don't. You know, if there's that's 2 feet. If there's an expert down there on how the proper Swedish cope should be, you know, chime in. I'm not afraid of hearing from you. So 2 inches. Wow. In there. So now I've got this part done. Then I'm going to come in. I'm going to cut out this top circle. I'm going to cut out the bottom circle, and then I'm just going to go over my corner trim. I'm just going to trim these two up so that I get this one just like that. So I've got my start of my Swedish cope in there, and you can see the insertion point is going to be right there, right where those two meet. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is most important. I'm going to go and save this. So I'll do save as a family. I'm going to do this SW log. Save that out, and then I'm going to go in and import that into my project. So I'll go in and load this into my project. be what I've been playing with. Put that inside. And now what we've got it in here, I'll go back to a 3D view real quick and jump back to our log, this guy. Actually, I'll switch him back to the 12-inch log. All right. So I want to make the Swedish coat. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to select this log wall inside, hit Edit Type. Got my errors that come up. Know that. Now I'm going to come into here and go into my structure. Whoops. I'm going to take a step back. I apologize. Okay. Before I do anything else, I've got to remember my most important button. That's going to be the duplicate command. You've got to remember to duplicate that. Okay, so I'm going to hit duplicate, and I've got 12-inch log wall 2. I'm going to just do this as a 12-inch WS log.
That's SW.
That is SW. I was testing you, Stan.
Well, it worked. I passed.
You did, with flying colors. So now I've got my SW for my Swiss log built inside. Now I'm going to come in here and get in the structure. And then inside the structure, I'm going to go in the sweeps. Now, I did this one on purpose because I want to have, I'm just going to switch the profile out because it's already been measured out for me. But I'm going to come inside here, and I'm just going to grab this profile. And then I'm going to look for my new log profile in here. Where'd it go? There it is, the SW log family right inside. Hit OK. And then I've got that inserted inside. You can see that right down in here. So I just continue with doing that for my log all the way up, and this should work out. I might have to play with my math later on because it'll look a little bit too high for the insertion point. But that's okay. But then as I hit OK, I've got these put inside. Now I've got to go in and make sure I'm dropping these down enough for that particular log. So this might have to be in at 0. Hit apply. Got that one down there. This one I'm going to come in, and I think if I put it at 8 inches is what I've designed it for. Cancel. I put 8 feet. That wasn't right. 8 inches. Hit apply. There we go. And you can see it's just a matter of doing the math. So this is going to be my 16 inches. And so on and so forth, just to get that kind of Swedish coat to work. We have that out there, and so hopefully this will explain a little bit of what's going on with that. So getting back to Kevin's, if we want to go in and do a profile of what we're doing in our project, I'll go back to that profile selection in here. Let's go back into that. I would go in, and instead of drawing the plan like this, I go back to create, and this time I'll just put, you know, my square line back here where I want that to cut, and then I'll just trim it up just like that. Come in, maybe delete this guy out, position this where I want him to be, and I might want to put him so he's working like this. And then I come in and save this guy out with a different name. So I might save him as, I don't know, flat back. I'm inventive. Flat back. Save. There we go. Now I'm able to go in, drag this back into the project, and build those log walls over and over again. So hopefully, Kevin, that'll answer that little question for you on how to get that done within the project.
Now, Mike, as we go back to some of the Swedish coping you were doing, Mike makes the comment, for my work, the riser height is typically 1 inch less than the diameter of the log. So, not sure what that is. It's if he's wanting you to show him something or what. But Mike, if you want to type in, is that just a comment, or are you wanting us to show you something a little bit around that? Be happy to do so if that's the case. Michael asks about being able to, on the overhang of the logs, you often see that kind of nice curve effect over the run of the logs as it goes up the wall, where it has, at the end, it has a nice curve. Yes, you could create a profile and cut that curve through
Yeah, and then where that's going to be done.
Okay, so Mike notes, yeah, for an 8-inch log, the stack height is 7 inches.
7 inches on an 8-inch log.
Right.
Okay, so on a 12-inch log, I'm going to be 11 inches. Hopefully that will get for that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't do Swedish copes. I've not been able to do a project with that yet. One of the other things we can do is do a log wall that's going to have varying thicknesses. For that, unfortunately, it would be nice to do if I could do something that was like rough hewn or start changing and things like that. And that's all going to be more on the rendering side, I feel, just to make it smoother for us to get bitmaps and stuff like that out there. So that's another one. I'm just kind of seeing if I ever play with it one day so I get something that looks a little bit different than just the regular straight plain piece of wood out there, the logs out there.
Brian, I know that you want to get a little bit to do with trusses here, and we got about 10 minutes left. Kevin says that, you know, he's with us on that technique, basically for the Swiss coping and so forth. He said there could be other challenges when the conditions change. And what we want to say is that, you know, Revit isn't designed specifically for log work. I mean, it's got to meet the demands of all architecture, which I don't mean that to sound condescending. It's just that logs, by their very nature, are kind of tricky little beasts to deal with. So, yeah, there's a lot of manual stuff you're going to have to do, and maybe some things you need to invent. And if you want to get a hold of us here and just kind of run some ideas past us, maybe we can play with them and all learn together. But we're giving you, or Brian's giving you the best of what he's found so far in his work. So hopefully this is helpful. Mike has a comment. My starter log, half or full, has a flat bottom and requires a separate sweep. And yes, that's, I think, in our case, Brian is kind of very similar on that contention.
Yeah, it just depends on what we're doing it for. Yeah, my starter log does here too, and I just haven't built the bottom one for that. I usually go in and show that with my bucking down at the bottom, my 2x, just to represent what we're putting it on in there.
And then last, Brian, Michael has a question, generic wall question. Can you do vertical sweeps and reveals, or only horizontal sweeps?
Inside the log, on the wall itself, you can only do horizontal, but we can do vertical sweeps within walls. Down in here, we have our different wall sweeps. So we've got our sweeps and reveals. If I go to wall sweeps and select that, I can do a vertical sweep inside and then select the wall and put that in there. And here you can see I've got a vertical sweep. Now, this is the generic sweep inside, but I can select that wall in here and select it. It has the default profile, but remember, we've just made profiles. I'll come inside and say, oh, I need an 18-inch log, and I'll put that in there, and now I've got that 18-inch round log there. Now, where is it being placed in the wall? Well, that we need to go back and see, and it places on the exterior edge of the wall, not the sweep. Remember that the wall itself, when we're looking at that wall, and I'll come in here and select this, hit Edit Type, but when we're talking about the wall for it, we are talking about this 6 inches right here. That's the actual wall part. So this is centered on the outside edge of that 6 inches in here. So that's one way of getting that done. And I'll put it in this way. Another way I'll do that is I actually do it with columns. It helps me a little bit more on controlling this a bit more. So I actually have custom columns that are my log walls, and that's where the tricky part gets into making trusses with columns and beams out there. You get into some kind of a little bit of a mess when you use the structural tools, all the structural tools to get this done for it. But this is one way we can get it done, is just by doing that in here. Another thing that's typical for me to do is that I will do this with, let's see if we get all this done. Some of these walls out here I'll do as a, I don't think I have this in the other one. I'll actually do this, and this log wall will be something that's more of not a log wall at all, but it just ends up being a curtain wall that allows me to put log members in. Okay, but some of the problems we have with curtain walls is that they don't cope properly. So instead, I will use a beam to do the vertical. So on this wall over here, I might come in, and if I want that log wall to match, select the log wall. Cancel real quick. Come on. So I can come inside, select that log wall. Hello, there we go. And pull that log over. Number one, I'm getting it to course out to figure out where that's going to be. On this particular project, we were messing with some different things. And number two, it copes in there, giving me the results that I want. So again, if I come in and I make sure I'm using my shadows and showing at least my ambient shadows, you can see that I start to get that coping mechanism in there to look correctly, way better than what's going on with these log walls inside here. I'm not getting that message at all to convey that to the client. So I might go in and do something more like this, deleting those out so that I have that particular wall the way I want it to be for that project. So hopefully that'll answer that a little bit. There's other ways of doing this. Again, the curtain wall is a great design that I use a lot for doing the log construction. And with the wall next to it, I can bring out those logs horizontally, and then the verticals are being controlled by the mullions in the window design.
Yeah, so this leads us into trusses. Maybe.
Yeah. So I'll jump into another project in here, go back to that other one that we were looking at. Because inside here I have some trusses, and I've got this kind of color coordinated because I want to show the differences in here. So when you're typically dealing with trusses, you'll deal with structural framing, and you'll have beams and columns and stuff. Well, the problem is that if you use a structural column and a structural beam, they do not cope at all. They don't even get close to coping out there. Okay. So, well, first of all, how do you get a structural round beam is usually the first question people ask. And, well, what I've done is in this particular beam, it is bar stock. All it is a round bar, and I increase that. So all it is like a piece of rebar, a piece of bracing that you'd find on the wall, that bar bracing that would be put in there. And instead of being a 1/4 inch thick, I make it the length of the log. Okay, and I redefine that. So for my structural members, I've got these built in as structural beams. Okay, I'm using the structural beam command. So we come inside here. Within the beam command, I've got all these different bar sizes that we might be using throughout the project, and I just build those out, and those are my logs. Okay. And we can build them out there. The problem comes into, like I alluded to, that we have to go in and put the columns inside. So if I came in and I had a column in here, and I don't even know if I have round columns, I do have some timber columns. I'll go to the top view real quick, and put those inside. Oh, slanted column. I don't want a slanted column. I just want a vertical column. Put that inside here, and let's see if this did what I'm hoping it's going to do and kind of mess up a little bit. Yeah, I got these two different columns in here, and granted one's concrete, but maybe I go in and I move this up a foot inside. Well, they won't ever cope together. They stay apart, and even if you start messing with in the beam family themselves and start messing with the offsets and stuff, and maybe you're going to go in and make the extrusion 2 foot inside. We can start to get some of that in here, but sometimes I find that these will break over time. They start not to clean up together. For the trusses, the real truss commanded plan doesn't work. The trusses themselves, when we start to use those within Revit, those don't seem to work at all. And I guess I got a little profile because I just don't use them. And let's see, there's the Imperial Library. Oh, that's the detail. There we go. Come in here and I'll do trusses, so structural trusses. There we go. That's just something flat. That'll work for us. Although I love using these, they will not cope at all. So the regular truss family, no matter how hard you try, isn't going to cope. It's going to start doing weird things like this. You might be able to start playing with it to get it to cope a little bit, but the second you go to change it, you have to rebuild the whole thing over again. That's not worth my time. It just drives me nuts trying to get all this to work out in here. So instead, I start building in combinations, and then a lot of times I'll come in. I'll actually use a regular wood column that's an architectural column for this, because the two just ignore each other as far as what they're doing, and they never really clean up inside. So you can put this inside each other all day. They don't try to clean up and do weird things. Here we can see two beams coming together, and they're going to cope like this, and that was just sometimes a happy accident, and you have to wrestle with it for a while to get this weird things to happen. I don't know if that's a happy accident. In my opinion, that isn't. So it's one of those things we have to clean that up. So we can see these are the architectural columns in here, and here are the structural beams inside to get this done. There's no structural, well, I could do an architectural column, but here's the result of all that. Okay. This end log, just to let you know, that's part of the wall, so that's how I'm going to get that log to come out for that deck inside here. So that's a pretty simple way of getting that done for just a small little cabin inside. Once you've gone in and build the trusses, it just becomes a matter of copying and pasting them around if you want to do it that way. I wanted to point out another truss inside here. So we've got our little section box, and I'm just going to pull this in just like that. We can go in and do other configurations inside and get that stuff done, and I think I still had like an arch beam in there to get that done. So you can do other interesting things by arching the beams, lengthen that up, and give different options for people out there. So this, obviously, this is a very small cabin to do, but I've got like 4 or 5 different combinations for this. This is the reverse side, but I also have the standard side and everything else with the porches on one side or the other, different gable roofs and stuff that you can all get in there. Starting to master things like dormers and putting that inside to get this done. But you can see, got all the roof purlins in here. Where they're resting on the columns. My tie log. Maybe this one doesn't have a tie log. It's not. It's just a log for the deck in here, and it looks like that might be in a little bad spot. May need to lower that a little bit, but I've got pretty much all this inside for this particular small little cabin in the woods to go with.
And a nice load-bearing window there.
Yeah.
We've got a comment from Kevin. For trusses, I have been using in-place structural framing, simple sweeps, extrusions, void and solid. In this environment, the join command copes them. So, there's another little tip for you, perhaps.
Yeah.
And, Brian, it's about time to close up. I think you have a little Halloween treat for the folks there if you want to...
oh, I didn't quite fire that up, but we could try our
best. You didn't get
best.
it fired up there? Well, anyway, if it works, it works. If not, then we want to thank you. This will be recorded, and Denny usually gets them posted on our YouTube channel, etc., in a couple, 3 days, so it'll be up there soon.
Yep, so hopefully you guys got a bit out of this. I'd love to hear more about your cabins, ideas, things that you're doing for thinking outside the box and more thinking along the log to get that done.
This is definitely an art and not a science.
Yeah, so, those guys who had a lot of input, Mike, Kevin, please drop me a line. We'll compare notes. I've got a couple other ideas. I just haven't been able to spring forth or get the right project to work on, but there's a lot more we can do with this thing out there. And I just want to let you know this was brought to you by Blammo. This is the old log commercial from Ren and Stimpy. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but it's log, log, log. It's better than bad. It's good.
All right, folks. Thanks very much, and we'll see you on the next one.
Ciao.